Hey, what's going on? So this is Critics Corner, and I am going. Yep, I got my Justice League stuff here. Oh, let's adjust the camera. Okay. So, I picked up Rebirth. Obviously, a lot of DC fans and comic fans have been doing the same the last couple of days. So, with that said, I'm going to try to explain Rebirth to our fans and, more importantly, explain what happened with 52, what's going on, how we got to Rebirth, and clear up some of this stuff and give you a review of Rebirth. So, I've even got some notes because it's a lot of stuff, okay? So anyway, the New 52 was relaunched a couple of years ago. The multiverse, which existed, okay, in DC, was changed. And that's where the core of what's going on in Convergence takes place. So what it's based on is a kind of pre-Flashpoint situation. So if anybody hasn't read Flashpoint, what happens in it is Barry Allen, the Flash, goes back and trying to save his mother from the Reverse Flash, keeping her alive. The events of that ripple through time, creating a world where Bruce Wayne wasn't the one who died. Instead, it was... Bruce Wayne's parents didn't die. It was Bruce who died, causing his mother to turn into the Joker and Thomas Wayne to become Batman. And it's a very kind of, shitty world because Aquaman is sending the Atlanteans to try to take over the world, and he's in a relationship with Wonder Woman, or there's this love triangle, and she's trying to take over the world through the Themyscirian, her army. So there's this polar. Superman was locked up, since he was a kid by the military and experiments. It's just a really shitty world. Anyway, Barry Allen puts the world right, fixes everything, stops himself from saving his mother in the timeline, and everything goes back to normal, or so we thought. Basically, the Flashpoint is kind of the catalyst that allowed DC to propel forward into the New 52, which was a reboot and a completely kind of new multiverse and universe of DC Comics. And everything before that was, the multiverse that we knew it as. That's confusing in itself, but that's where you got to kind of start in this whole before and after. So, with that said, the way the New 52 ended was Superman is basically, dying again. And, he's dying again. We're back at that. So, New 52 Superman, okay, who is not really kind of the lovable beacon of hope that Superman has always been. I mean, the New 52, he's a hero. He embodies a lot of what Superman embodies, but the world doesn't necessarily love him as much as, as we know, the Superman stories. There's kind of a confliction, and he's had a lot of problems, Superman, to understand the end of New 52 and the last days of Superman and his death and what it means for DC, Rebirth, and what happened in Convergence and what happened in Superman, and whatnot, is to kind of go back to what happened to Superman in 52. So, Vendel Savage was a villain in the New 52 that kind of stole Superman's powers. I love Vendel Savage, and I've always thought to myself that it would be awesome if Vendel Savage was developed live action, and they've never done him up until DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and I'm a huge fan of what they do on CW with those shows, and I think it's great, and I think they did a great job with him in the first live action iteration of Savage. I thought the first season of DC's Legends of Tomorrow was great, and he was great. And, Savage is a badass villain, and what happened in New 52 is Savage basically develops this plan to, take Superman out of the game because he's the strongest of the heroes, robbing him of his power, and then systematically he'll take out the rest of the Justice League. The story saw him going through time, picking special children of his in his bloodline that had innate powers that could kind of rule with him and take over the world and reshape the world in the present. That's like a really simplistic, explanation of that storyline. But what you really need to know is Supes lost his power, okay? He was not fully, but relatively drained where he wasn't nearly as strong. He couldn't really fly. His abilities were just downsized tremendously. He also lost his suit. And one of the cool things about the New 52 for me was that they redid his outfit and they made it a kind of living Kryptonian technology and armor. It reminded me a lot of like Spider-Man's Black Symbiote in the sense that Superman could will the nanite technology, could will it on and off this armor. I thought it was very cool, the redone. He loses that and, he's weak. So I didn't really dig this kind of storyline of him kind of, trying to get his powers back. He was wearing he wears a Superman t-shirt and jeans for a long time. Also during this, part of Savage's plan is they blackmail his secret identity. And Lois realizes that if he's always susceptible to this blackmail of his identity, then he won't be able to do his job. So she decides to release the information, and the whole world knows that, Clark Kent's Superman. And it pretty much destroys, his world, which makes a lot of sense to me, that she would do that. But I don't necessarily love that idea. You know what I mean? I'm not a huge fan of that the world knew about him and what it caused forward. I don't know. It just I didn't enjoy reading it. I enjoy the idea of it, and I didn't enjoy Superman in a t-shirt, for a while. So anyway, this is what happens. The world now knows that he's Superman because Lois, reveals his identity. He deals with the repercussions of that, which are repercussive, okay? And he's, his power's downgraded. It affects his relationship with Wonder Woman, affects him with the Justice League, affects him in general. So now he's kind of on this mission, once they all realize that it's Savage that's behind this, and Savage kind of takes out a lot of the Justice League. He's on a mission to stop Savage and, gain back his powers. Ultimately, he realizes that if he exposes himself to kryptonite, which we all know would normally kill him and weaken him, instead it empowers his cells. So he gets his power back, and he actually he re-energizes himself with a massive exposure to kryptonite. And then he kind of falls into this Restasis chamber of the fortress, which revitalizes him as well as gives him back his real suit, the Kryptonian suit from the New 52. He beats Savage, things are kind of moved forward, but everybody still knows that Clark Kent's Superman. And he has his powers back. But we learn that was shortly lived because his exposure to all of this and what happened to him in the kryptonite, it damaged his soul. It's almost like a cancer, and he's going to die. And they kind of go through Kryptonian technology and Batman and everybody try to figure out if they can cure him, but there's no cure. He's going to die. So now we enter into this storyline of Superman is going to die. Now, Justice League, which Superman, of course, is involved. Sorry about that. So now Justice League is involved in the Darkseid Wars, and this is after the Vendel Savage storyline. I'm going to make that part brief. Darkseid has a daughter, Grail. She creates a great plan, working with the Anti-Monitor, who's the only thing that can beat Darkseid. We learn the Anti-Monitor, after killing Darkseid, we learned that he actually was Morbius. Batman replaced Morbius on the chair. All the other Justice League members become different gods for a period of time. In the end, Okay, after all this crazy stuff happens with Darkseid, the Anti-Monitor, the gods, the powers, blah, 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 Darkseid's daughter, the history of Themyscira, we learn that Wonder Woman had a brother that she never knew about. She doesn't know where he is. Long story short, okay, because if you want to know about it, read it, okay? Darkseid's gone, and Batman is, off the chair. He's not a god anymore, and Superman is still dying. That's the end of the result. Is that all of this, shit that they go through to beat Darkseid in the Darkseid Wars? We are still left with Superman dying. And now we go into the final days of Superman storyline, which spanned all the Superman titles, which is really the catalyst of kicking us off into DC Convergence. Now, one of the last things I will say about what I think the Justice League Darkseid War did for, not Converge, I'm sorry, DC Rebirth, is that Batman on the Morbius chair learned, on the chair itself, he learned that there are 3 Jokers. He thought he was going to learn the identity of the Joker because he asked the chair, because we've never known. But it told him, instead of the identity of who it is, it told him there's 3 Jokers. I believe this is part of the whole multiverse story that's re-existed. But there's 3 Jokers now. And that impacted, the Batman world moving forward to DC Rebirth. Also, what impacted moving forward to Rebirth is that Wonder Woman learned that she had a brother that was hidden for her, and she wants to find him. And what's going on with him. Grail disappears, thanks to her mother kind of helping to end the whole Darkseid Wars, because she becomes empowered with all the gods' powers, because her child, her infant child, absorbs all the powers and basically becomes a new Darkseid that she controls, and she's able to absorb all the gods' powers. And she becomes, and she also absorbs the anti-life equation, and she becomes just ultimately powerful, and they can't stop her. But her mother, who basically was an Amazon who raised her in this way of hate and war, realizes her errors, and through love convinces her this is not right, and she's able to bring her child back to infancy, not Darkseid anymore, and she stops what she's doing. And now they're kind of banished away. And you see, the child in panels still has the Darkseid Omega eyes and is still super powerful. He is a future Darkseid. I think that's where they're going with that. That's confusing. Read it, but I think he's a future Darkseid, and Grail is watching everything that's happening. So that's probably going to make it in Rebirth. And we have Wonder Woman trying to figure out who her brother is that's been hidden from her in Rebirth. And then we have Batman trying to figure out why there's 3 Jokers in Rebirth. So you see how there's all kind of... And then we have Jessica, who was originally empowered by the Crime Syndicate's universe, the doppelganger version of the Green Lantern ring. She now, who was bad, fights back and sacrifices herself, lives, and is given an actual Green Lantern ring. So now she'll be a part in Rebirth. Jessica will be an actual Green Lantern now, part of the Corps. So that was cool, to see. So that's kind of some stuff there. But now, as far as Superman dying, his last days, after all this has happened, he tells Lois that he wants to kind of tell this story to the world of who he was in his last days. So she agrees to do this. And now he's set on a quest to find Kara, Supergirl, to ask his cousin to kind of take his place as, the world's, Superman or Supergirl, member of the Justice League, and, take his place as that powerful Kryptonian, that symbol of hope with the S in his absence for the world. So she's reluctant at first, but she agrees, to take over for her cousin, you know what I mean? And that's his goal, and of course he comes to terms with Wonder Woman, that because he tells her that he loves her, and they have their moment, their romance has closure, if you will, which is cool, because before this, he kind of was like I can't be with you and I don't really love you, even though she stood by his side during the whole non-power things. But now there's closure. You know, DC wrote closure to their relationship. Hey, I love you too, and you know, you meant everything to me. There's really cool closure between Batman and Superman. Batman gives him a lot of respect and kind of gets a little mushy, you know, at the end, which is kind of rare for Bruce. Last time we saw him this mushy was the original Death of Superman comic book, you know, and the aftermath of that after Doomsday. So it's kind of nice to see that. You know, he has a touching moment with him at the end. And, you know, Superman basically is met with a clone, doppelganger, if you will, of himself, who believes mentally that he has Clark's memories, and he believes that he's the real Superman, but he's not. He's a prison inmate that was a experiment in cloning Superman and Superman's solar flare power. That's a new power that the New 52 gave Superman. He has the ability to kind of explode himself into a nuclear solar bomb. It's like but it leaves him completely weak, almost near death if he, you know, overdoes it. But it's a explosive power, you know, kind of a kamikaze power almost, the solar flare. So they take samples and kind of energy from this and Superman, and they kind of clone this thing who was a prisoner. But he's so warped, you know, with all of this, that he thinks that he's actually Superman, and he has glimpses of who he is, but he thinks he's Superman. It's just, you know, whatever. The doppelganger kind of, in the last few days, is solar radiated. So he's basically walking around. Thing looks like a Super Saiyan. I mean, he's like crazy. He's like just energized solar flare. I mean, he's just glowing all the time. And he's near nuclear, you know. It's kind of like Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Destroyer, walking around just radiating heat, ready to just blow up into nuclear bomb. So Superman in his last days decides it's his mission to stop the doppelganger and, you know, get rid of it before he dies, clear up his name, and leave the world to Supergirl, you know, the next Kryptonian, and, you know, that'll take over, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, Wonder Woman and Batman help him in his last days. He's pretty weak now. You could see the kryptonite poisoning, and you could see him dying. And they find the doppelganger. There's this huge battle at the end between him and the doppelganger. This is where things get kind of confusing. I think things have been confusing all the way up to this point, but this is where it gets even a little bit more confusing. But this is very, very, very important, because this is where where Superman is going now in Rebirth. Okay, Convergence. If you didn't read it, it was in 2015. What happened in Convergence, I'm going to surmise it very quickly because you should read it. Brainiac, okay, decides to destroy the multiverse, okay? Now, what happens is that the pre-Flash, I keep hitting this thing, the pre-Flash point multiverse, okay, which was before, now look at it this way. After Flashpoint is the New 52 universe that you've been reading for the last 4 years. But before Flashpoint was before they revamped it into 52, that multiverse, which was, you know, Superman that fought Doomsday and died and then came back to life, and all of those storylines and all of those versions of the DC heroes. Now, like, also in all the crises, Infinity on Crisis, you know, Infinity Earths, you know, Crisis on Earth, blah, blah, blah. All of those, that's in the pre-Flashpoint. So that basically what they did with Convergence was they brought the original timeline, which is like dating back to 1986, okay? So they brought back the original multiverse timeline from 1986. And in Convergence, it basically comes back, but it's rebooted, okay, but maintained, because Superman, Supergirl, Barry, and Parallax, which is Hal Jordan in that pre-Flashpoint, go back in time to stop the Convergence, and it reboots but yet maintains the multiverse that was from 86 to Flashpoint. And now that's canon now. That's back. Okay, so it's not just the 52 worlds that are in New 52. That's the multiverse again. That pre-Flashpoint 1986 multiverse. If that makes any sense. So now what happens is Superman, and when I say Superman, it is not the Superman from New 52. It is Superman, Kal-El, from 1986 up to Flashpoint, who is the same Superman that fought Doomsday, died, and was reborn. That's Superman, okay? That guy helps Supergirl from that world, and Parallax, which is Hal Jordan, and Barry Allen from that. And when they reboot and stop, Convergence and reboot the multiverse, they're all dispersed. So they're all kind of go their different ways. And he married Lois in the pre-50, in pre-Flashpoint and stuff. Lois was married. So what they do now is he has a kid, John. He names it after his father, Jonathan Kent. And they go now because everyone's kind of displaced. So Parallax goes on their own, and that Barry pre-Flashpoint, goes on his own, and Supergirl goes somewhere. We don't really know where they go. All we know is that Superman, and when I say Superman, I mean Superman, from Doomsday era, died, blah, 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 pre-Flashpoint, he goes to the main Earth now, which is the Earth that we've been seeing the last 4 years in 52. More than 4, in 52, okay? And him, Lois, and his son go there. Now, when they get there, now if you want to know what's going on, read Convergence, then read after Convergence, Superman, Lois, and Clark, which is a series they made after Convergence to show what's going on with that Superman, okay? That pre-Flashpoint Superman, now that he's in the New 52 Earth. Okay, so now that he's there, when he gets there, they're there and witnessing the events of the first time the Justice League got together in New 52, which is when they first fought Darkseid, okay? That's when they all come together, okay? And he sees Darkseid, this new version of him, and what's happening to the world in the battle. He almost gets involved to help them, but Cyborg figures out how to propel him back with the mother box in that story, and blah, blah, blah. So he doesn't get involved. Ultimately, he's kind of distraught about the fact that the world doesn't really love Superman, okay, in this world, because they don't in the 52 world. There isn't this abundance of love for the heroes or even Superman. So instead, he decides not to get involved. And his powers are a bit in flux in this world as well. But he decides ultimately to go secluded, live with Lois, raise his son Jonathan, his young son Jonathan, and just, not let the current heroes and his version in this world of Superman know that he exists. Now, he doesn't completely not help out. This is where it gets confusing to me. He wears a variation of the suit. It's kind of the suit that he was brought back to life in, the black suit with the silver S, in the aftermath of the Doomsday story arc. And, he does do heroic things, and they're all in the shadows. I don't know how nobody picks up on the fact that there's another Superman running around, but he does a good job not being spotted, and he does heroic acts. They're fun, it's different, but again, not sure nobody figures it out, but nobody figures out that there's another Superman running around, basically, is what we have to stomach. So anyway, Lois has been having an author named Author X, and she's been releasing all these awesome stories about intergang and criminals and trying to help the world from secret that she can. She's still Lois Lane, but she also does not make contact with anybody or her current Lois Lane in that timeline. It's just, hey, we're here. Nobody knows we're here. But this is where Rebirth comes in. At the end of the last days of Superman in 52, when Superman is dying and he's fighting his solar-powered doppelganger, that Superman comes in to help him. And everybody's like, who the fuck is this guy? But whatever, he helps him. And then at the end of the last issue of Superman, which is issue number 52, Superman dies. Kaput. He absorbs all the energy from this doppelganger in space, saving the fucking world. Between his diseased body and, I keep doing this, between his diseased body and absorbing all the energy, he dies. He says his final words to Batman, to Wonder Woman, to his cousin, to everybody, and he fucking dies. And now we're left with this guy, and they're like, who the hell are you? And he's like, well, in time, I'll let you know. And he fucking pops out, and it's like, oh shit, is that another Superman? I don't fucking know. But anyway, he's gone, and Superman's dead. And this is where we're left off, so fast forward now to Rebirth, which is the next thing that happens. Whew, that's a lot to absorb, right? But Superman's dead. Well, 52 Superman's dead. The guy who's on Earth, which is pre-Flashpoint, is still alive. That's Superman. Crazy stuff. So what happens in Rebirth, to put it simple, because I want you to read it, is Wally West, okay, pre-Flashpoint, okay, who was trained by Barry Allen, is running through the Speed Force and traveling through time, and he realizes that there's something even stronger than Darkseid or, you know, the Anti-Monitor. There's something that has been pulling the strings after the events of Flashpoint that has disrupted years of the other Earth's lives and the heroes' lives, relationships, events, and powers. So he's now running through the Speed Force to go back to talk to Bruce about what Barrett did in Flashpoint and the letter that he gave him, and try to warn him that something's not right, that years are missing and the multiverse is not right and things haven't been right since after the events of Flashpoint. And he ultimately gets the Batman, but nobody knows who he is because, remember, this is after Flashpoint. This is the 52 line, and they don't know those events of pre-Flashpoint. So he's like running to people that have no idea who he is or remember. So he interacts with different people who have no idea who he is because they're after Flashpoint, not pre-Flashpoint. But it's clear that they're alluding to the fact that the multiverse exists again, and that there's something greater and more powerful out there that, like, fucked with all of this, you know, this multiverse and timeline. Finally, in the end of Rebirth, he gets to Barry, and Barry, of course, again, is the new 52 Barry, who doesn't know who the hell he is, but ultimately, somehow, he connects with Barry emotionally or Speed Force, whatever. There's a moment between them. Barry touches him, and Barry remembers. Boom. Pre-Flashpoint memories are back. And he pulls him out, and he remembers him, and the two of them exchange the fact that, what the hell happened? How do people now remember? How did history and the multiverse, how did things get changed? Like, what happened? And Barry ultimately blames himself. He thinks it's another screw up on him for what he did during the Flashpoint. But Wally tells him no. You know, Wally's like, no, man, this isn't your fault. So what's happening in Rebirth is Wally is again, to summarize, is running through the Speed Force to try to reconnect with everybody, to let them know that there's a bigger, badder guy, stronger than Darkseid, stronger than the Anti-Monitor, that is robbed a decade, if not more, of their memories, their powers, their relationships from the multiverse pre-Flashpoint, not part of the 52. And I guess that's where that original multiverse and that pre-52, that pre-Flashpoint of 52 now meet, where it's now canon somehow. And in the end, Wally is only able to connect with Barry and make Barry remember something. So now you have this trying to figure it out. And I think Batman's starting to figure it out too, because we see in the ending panel where he's so confused about these three Jokers running around, and then he finds the smile from Watchmen. I don't know what that is. I guess the Watchmen world maybe is converging in. I have no idea. So that's where we are with Rebirth. And we're also, I think, kind of alluding to the fact that the original Superman, well, not the original, but the Superman from 86 to New 52, which is the one who fought Doomsday, is going to take over. Now that New 52 Superman is dead, I think he's going to be our new Superman. That's going to be the new Clark Kent Kal-El. How that's going to interact with the fact that the world knows who Clark Kent and Superman is, I guess he'll be now Clark. He'll now be, the new name that he is. You know, I don't know. I'm confused myself, but I'm just trying to put it together. He's, so anyway, that's what happens in Rebirth. We also see Ray Palmer, who's the Atom, also talk to his assistant in a video recording and saying to him, hey, listen, I went micro, I went beyond kind of the atomic structure, and I went through the timeline, through the atomic structure, and he also discovers the ripples and the changes in time, and that something has been disrupting the timeline and this particular, this particular form of the timeline, which obviously connects to what Wally is saying is that something has disrupted the multiverse, disrupted the timeline, robbed things from us. The Atom starts to see this by going microscopic and going through the timeline himself. So we're seeing this. What it all means, we'll obviously have to keep reading and figure out, because you have this pre-Flashpoint storyline which came before 52, which is the 86 to the Flashpoint and the 52 history of DC and the multiverse, which is now back. And that's what Wally's talking about. That's the period of time and the universe that he's claiming is disrupted, even, after the convergence. And then you have the new 52, which he's trying to, now he's at, and he's trying to get them to remember. And I mean, it's confusing. But the multiverses are back. That's the point. And the history that existed before Flashpoint, the new 52, is back. And it's canon. And that's what you have to get from reading Convergence, from reading the end of 52, from reading Rebirth. And there's obviously some type of big bad that's been changing time as well and fucking up shit. And that's what I think Rebirth's going to go into. So that's where we are right now. And to kind of recap, we've got Superman, who was 86 to Flashpoint. That original Superman, which is on Earth, which seems like he's going to take over now with his son being Superman, now that the new 52 Superman, Kal-El, has gone. He's deceased. Okay? We have Wonder Woman, who now has learned through the Darkseid War, and now moving into Rebirth in the end of 52. She learned that she has a brother who she's going to try to discover. Okay? We have Batman, who has learned now at the end of 52 into Rebirth that there are 3 Jokers, and he wants to figure out what that is, okay? And then we have also learned that the Green Lantern Corps is back from where they disappeared in that alternate reality from 52. And we have Hal, and now Jessica is a new Green Lantern who will be a part of that Corps and the future of the Corps. So this is where we are as far as moving into Rebirth. And we now have the multiverse back through Convergence and through what's happening. The original multiverse, that multiverse from 86 to Flashpoint. And we now know that it's part of this. There is no just 52 worlds anymore like the new 52. It's now the entire multiverse, which was pre-Flashpoint. But it's back now and it's canon. And we know that there's some type of big bad that's stronger than Darkseid and the Anti-Monitor that has been disrupting this timeline in history and removing things from their memories and their history to weaken them. And we'll have to discover what that is and where that takes it. So moving forward, DC is going to be launching Batman bi-monthly now, meaning that there'll be 2 issues a month, not 1. And they'll be now of the new price of $2.99. We know that Superman will be the same. There'll be 2 a month, which will also be $2.99. Same thing with Green Lantern. All the main titles, Flash, Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, will now be twice a month, not once a month, and they'll be $2.99. So you'll have to keep up with that. There'll be some subtitles as well. Teen Titans, which will be once a month, which there will also be a couple of other, titles that'll be once a month. You can see all that on DCComics.com, but the main ones will be twice a month. And also Action Comics is not continuing after the 52 numbers. All the others start at 1 now, okay? But Action Comics now actually starts back at where it left off pre the reboot after Flashpoint at 52, which it starts at, I don't want to misquote it, so let me pop this bad guy open and tell you we are back at, where are we here? Hold on. Which is interesting to me that they're even doing that, but hey, this is the whole point of Rebirth, my friends. This is where we are, you know what I mean? Action Comics is now going to be starting back at number 957, which means that it is, here you go, if you haven't picked it up, number 957, which means that it's starting pre-Flashpoint Crisis. So before they rebooted everything. And yes, there's Lex Luthor on it. Again, read the Darkseid Wars in 52. He actually becomes the new ruler of Apocalypse embedded with the Omega power in the wake of Darkseid being gone, loses the power, still goes back. They still run the show, still this badass Superman suit, and still some version of powers. I'm not even getting into that in this video, but anyway, Action Comics will follow Lex Luthor now as with this Superman suit that he's created, kind of running the show. However, it's still continuing after 956, which was the end of Action Comics before they rebooted it in the New 52 in 2011. So we're going back to that, which is interesting. It's just another way of connecting the multiverse and the pre-Flashpoint stuff prior to the New 52. And yeah, Wonder Woman will be 2 titles a month. Aquaman will be 2 titles a month. Green Arrow, 2 titles. Green Lantern. Teen Titans is once a month. Batman's twice a month. Flash is twice a month. Titans will be starting at #1, which is Wally West now uncovering the secret of this multiverse problem, which will be once a month. So you have kind of that. And everything's back in one except Action Comics, which is interesting to me. I think that's in an effort to connect to the Superman that we have now, who's from the pre-Flashpoint. Anyway, I've given you a lot of wealth of knowledge. Go read everything. If you want to catch up on all this, start with reading Justice League Darkseid Wars. Read the end of the Last Days of Superman, which spans all of the New 52 titles of Superman, which is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Action Comics, and Superman. See the end of that. Also read Superman, Lois, and Clark, and read Convergence, which was Convergence 2015. So read Convergence 2015, read Darkseid War, and read The Last Days of Superman and Superman, Action Comics, Superman and Wonder Woman, and Batman and Superman, which runs through the New 52. That'll beef you up. Then read Rebirth. Comment below. I hope this was informative. I tried my best. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you understand anything that's going on. And I'm going to keep reading, and I'm going to keep posting up stuff as we go forward with the Rebirth. My next video will be talking about the season finale of Arrow, DC's Legend of Tomorrow, and Flash, and some rumors about Season 2. And then this weekend, I'm going to have a video about Marvel, which is what they're doing in comics, which is Spider-Man's new title, Civil War 2, and the new Captain America now that he's Hail Hydra. Anyway, all right, peace, guys. Pete from Critics Corner.